Blixtar och dunder, magiska under. Plötsligt en dag har det hänt. Åh, vilken tur, du är en lyckofigur. En dag i staden, på esplanaden, du såg något som blänkte. Det kändes som jag hade vingar. Åh, vilken underbar dröm. Diggiloo, diggiley, alla tittar på mig när jag går i mina gyllene skor. Dansade omkring på gatan och hela världen den log. Diggiloo, diggiley, himlen öppnade sig och knappt man sina ögon tror. Och jag börjar nästan sväva i mina gyllene skor. Jag har visioner för miljoner, gyllene dojor för dig och lyckan är gjord. Säg mer, vi tror på ditt ord. Tänk dig ett hinder, det flyger du över. Vingar på skorna är allt vad du behöver. Och jag kan bli vad jag önskar i min förtrollade värld. Diggiloo, diggiley, alla tittar på mig när jag går i mina gyllene skor. Och hela världen den log. Diggiloo, diggiley, himlen öppnade sig när jag knappt att man sina ögon tror. Och jag börjar nästan sväva i mina gyllene skor. Det var en önskedröm, men jag måste medge att när jag vaknar jag med glädje. Ja, en sång och en dansman. Oh, 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 oh. Bortom mörkret finns en evighet. Himlens alla stjärnor lyser upp i natten. Kanske att min dröm blir verklighet. För din kärlek går jag genom eld och vatten, och jag vill ha dig här hos mig och alltid vara nära dig. Och finns i mina drömmar 1000 och en natt, väcker mina känslor varje tidig gryningsmorgon. Sagan om vår kärlek kan bli verklig, kan bli sann, om du älskar mig i 1000 och en natt. Som en tjuv om natten kommer du, stjäl en kyss och tar det mesta av min kärlek. Utanför så är det mörkt nu. När det ljusnar vill jag vara i din närhet. Jag vill vakna upp med dig och känna att du älskar mig. Finns i mina drömmar 1000 och en natt, väcker mina känslor varje tidig gryningsmorgon. Sagan om vår kärlek kan bli verklig, kan bli sann, om du älskar mig i 1000 och en natt. Skuggor som faller i den blåa skymningen får mig att längta efter kärlek och bara drömma. Och du finns i mina drömmar 1000 och en natt, väcker mina känslor varje tidig gryningsmorgon. Sagan om vår kärlek kan bli verklig, kan bli sann, om du älskar mig i 1000 och en natt. Finns i mina drömmar sagan om vår kärlek kan bli verklig, kan bli sann, om du älskar mig i 1000 och en natt.
Här kommer jag igång här nu. Jag trodde det skulle spela längre. Ge dem en varm applåd. The Band, Morgonkoppen. And from now on, we are actually going to speak English. And also welcome to the people who are watching us in front of the screens. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen, and very much welcome. Or as you say in Malmö, hallåja och välkomna. My name is Lydia Capolicchio, and you are watching Malmömorgon, which I have been looking forward, of course. As you may know, this is a breakfast meeting who will actually explore how great events can create long-lasting growth and legacy. And I don't know what your perception is when you think about legacy, but when I looked the word up in a dictionary, it talks about that it's about the decisions you make today and how you affect future generations. That is legacy, and that is what we are going to talk about, especially when you have this great event in May, Eurovision Song Contest 2024. And of course, congratulations. And of course, this affects the city in many ways and gives also opportunities, but of course also challenges. And you will meet a lot of interesting guests here in our panel in a few minutes. But first of all, I would like to introduce a person I think you already know. This is Michael Nord. Välkommen.
Tackar.
Michael Nord.
Yeah, sounds great.
It sounds like a pop star.
Yeah.
Yes. Can you sing?
No, unfortunately not.
No, thank God.
Yeah.
I mean, you don't have to if you can't.
Don't take me there.
No. A little bird told me, whispered, that you were in Japan recently, and every people knew about Eurovision.
They do. I was in Tokyo last week, and we were both, of course, meeting Japanese people, but also people from all over the world, and everyone knows about Eurovision. I was speaking to my colleague from Los Angeles, and I said, we have this event in May, Eurovision. Yeah, of course, I know about Eurovision. So speaking about legacy, it's not just for the city of Malmö or for Sweden or for Europe. We are influencing the world.
You are influencing the world.
As Malmö so often do.
Yes, of course.
Of course.
So what are your expectations of this huge event for Malmö now?
Well, we had it last time in 2013, and we know that we have gained a lot from it, both when it comes to tourists and congresses and businesses. So I think that, just as you said about legacy, we have to do the right things now to be gain of it for the coming 10 or 15 years.
And we have to mention that 2013 was also the first time when Sweden started to talk about sustainable events.
Yes, of course.
And
you know, before going there,
we
had the Eurovision also in 1992. Do you know about it?
I know.
You know, because I think we have a short video from it.
Oh, what a surprise.
Shall we take a look?
Yes, let's have a look.
Let's do that.
Gentlemen, your presenters, Lydia Capolicchio and Harald Kreuziger.
Wow, what a memory. Thank you. And I look completely the same.
You do.
Yes.
Absolutely.
But when we're talking about the Eurovision, it's amazing. By the way, you were 17, 1992. I've Googled your age up.
Yeah.
I was a little bit older, but also the youngest presenter ever. I was 20-something. Do you remember what you did that evening?
Of course, I was sitting in front of the fat TV, watching the Eurovision, and you, of course.
No, you're lying, because before you said, I don't remember what I did in Eurovision. And now you're saying this. Anyway, you can see the reruns and so on.
But Lydia, speaking about legacy, this is 32 years ago?
Yes.
Yes, it is. What was the legacy for you, be one of the presenters for Eurovision?
Interesting that you're asking that. I mean, some people here are adults and remember 92. And it was a very special year because, you know, there were the Balkan War. It was terrible. And Yugoslavia was the last time it contributed to the Eurovision as a country, because Yugoslavia was all splitted up. Slovenia and Croatia were already countries. And some reporter found out that my mother is from Slovenia. So they started to have these political issues around my person, which we didn't want to interfere with the political discussions at all. So when you're talking about legacy, to make a long story short, we felt, especially I with my Italian father, Slovenian mother, born in Sweden, I felt that actually we helped to unite Europe, at least for one night, a sort of peace-fulfilling event. And we did it for one night. Now it's 3 nights a week. I don't know. How long is it?
The slogan today, united by Europe, united by music, united by Malmö, is still valid. Yeah.
So I think that was a good legacy. And unfortunately, we have war still, and still the function is the same.
Yeah.
Now I have a question to you. We talked about this sustainable event, etc., on 2013. How important is sustainability for Malmö and the event nowadays?
Well, sustainability is part of the DNA of Malmö, so it's really important for the city of Malmö in everything we do, and especially when it comes to this big event that we know could of course, influence the environment, and both in short term and in long term. So it's really important to have a high standard of sustainability from the beginning. When we were bidding to the Swedish television, sustainability was one of the core in the Malmö bid.
Are you going to get free tickets?
Sorry?
Are you going to get free tickets?
I don't know yet. I'm hoping.
You don't know yet.
You want one?
I have my own contacts.
Okay.
We'll see about that. We can talk about that later. Anyway, we will have an experienced panel here in a few minutes. What are you curious about? Because they're experienced in many ways from earlier events.
Yes. Of course, when it comes to Liverpool, I'm experienced what did they do before the event, to speaking about legacy. And when it comes to Barcelona, it was in 1992, I think, the Olympic Games. So it's so long time ago. How have they like managed to continue to have this like a melting pot of tourism and congresses and businesses meeting in Barcelona? So experiences both in the long term, but also from Liverpool in the short term. And then from the researcher and from Ulrika from the city, what can we do from the city together with the business life? And what do the research say about it? So I'm really curious and looking forward to the panel.
So happy that you could be with us here today, and I'll think you probably continue to listen to discussion behind scenes. Okay, Mikael Nord!
Thank you.
Thank you. So let's invite our guests and the panel. Please welcome, I'll tell the names later on, but let's start with a wonderful introduction from Morgonkoppen. Welcome! Give the man! Very much welcome to Malmö and to Malmömorgon. Good to see you. I think the easiest way would be now to actually find out who you are. So could you introduce yourself? Let's start with Pau over there.
Good morning, everyone. So first of all, thank you for the invitation. It's an honor to be in Malmö after many years that I've not visited. So my name is Pau Solanilla. I'm, for the last 3 years, responsible for city promotion in Barcelona. This means that I'm in charge of the economic promotion of Barcelona in the world, the attraction of investments and events, the attraction of talent, international talent, and also the Barcelona brand in the world. So this is my responsibility.
We are going to talk about the Olympic Games, of course, 1992 in Barcelona. Did you see anything of the Eurovision 1992, or were you too busy?
Well, you mentioned the Yugoslavia war in 1992. Despite the Olympic Games, I was very much involved in the Council of Europe, and at that time it was the first European Youth Week where the East and the West we met in Bratislava, in Slovakia, and we were very much involved. And I was in peacekeeping and peace resolution in Yugoslavia. So I didn't see the contest, but '92 is very important for me, both for the Olympics and also because of my engagement in the Yugoslavia war.
I see. Very much welcome, Pau. And we have Ulrika here as well. Who are you and what do you represent today?
I'm the local representative in this. I'm Ulrika Hallengren. I'm the CEO of Wihlborgs Fastigheter. We invest in the Öresund region, and Malmö is our main city. So this is one of our buildings, for example.
We're so happy to be here.
Yeah.
We'll talk more about how you see, what kind of perspectives you have considering the upcoming event. Harry, who are you?
Morning, everybody. I'm Harry Doyle. I'm a councillor in Liverpool, and I'm the cabinet member for culture, health and well-being. So since 2021, covering everything culture in Liverpool and major events. So it's great to be back, because I was here last week for the Eurovision handover, and I feel like I'm a citizen of Malmö now, and I need to talk very slowly.
Yes, thank you. Harry, you weren't born in 1992.
No, but I do love Barcelona. I was in Barcelona just in October, and just in the Olympic Park, and the regeneration of the Olympic Park was fantastic. Liverpool is a fantastic city. Obviously, I'm biased. We're a little bit behind Barcelona, but one day maybe we'll host the Olympics.
Anyway, Harry, despite your young age, you have an enormous interesting perspective on what we're going to talk about further on. Thank you very much for being here. Finally, Robert, from the up north, you arrived with a great fur and long stockings, because you have a very cold weather up north.
By horse, yes.
By horse. Robert, who are you?
I am the director of something called the E2 Research Center. It's a research environment with 40-ish people from 20-ish countries studying tourism and travel, and the research I do myself mainly focus on event and event impact, or legacy, as we say in Sweden.
So interesting. And I would like to actually stay with you for a moment and talk about how do you actually measure events? What kind of parameters do you have? I know that you have a couple of slides to show also, so please tell us how this works.
Yes, thank you, Lydia. I put together this bombastic table, and somehow it's
quite boring, actually.
Yeah, it is. It will get worse, but somehow this is what event research have been doing since during the last decades, and I would say something that is quite agreed on in event impact research groups where people I meet. We have sort of decided to use this triple bottom line, where we do take a broad grip on event impacts, where we combine economical impacts with environmental and social impacts. And there has been kind of a movement, or maybe areas have been added as we have been going. There have been a large focus on economical positive economical impact based in growth and development throughout the years, and we have counted guest nights, and we have been talking about job opportunities and turnovers and incomes and this kind. But there are also negative impacts, and I think if you are to think seriously about event impacts, you should take both the positive and the negative perspectives and dimensions together.
Were you done with that picture, or were we?
No, I mean, I can talk for hours about this, but obviously someone here is already getting bored.
No, you decide the speed here.
No, but I could just mention the other two, that you mentioned that 2013 there was a bigger focus on environmental issues, and that we can also see that in research that we have added environmental dimension in many studies, and not least carbon footprints has been on everyone's lips. But the interesting, if you ask me, trend or movement right now is that we talk more and more about the societal impacts, how tourism and events can affect the place attractiveness, the identity of people living there, maybe proudness, how events can take social dimensions when it comes to health and integration and those real societal challenges. And one might ask, what is a successful event? Well, maybe if the sum of the positive impacts are larger, is larger than the sum of the negative impacts, maybe. But event researchers are all over the impacts, but there are trends.
Mm. Now we're done with that picture, I think.
For now, yes.
For now.
And I also added this figure, and this is actually from a quite boring report we wrote some years back. And if the reader do survive until figure 72, they run into this figure, and it says something about how do we measure economic impacts from events, and this is one of my main critiques, or something I would like to put forward. These are all real numbers based on two events that happened to be in Jämtland during 2019, two World Championships. And by doing this, we show there are so many different ways in counting economic impacts from events. If we count just if we not separate the number of visits to the number of visitors, which is quite common. You see the difference to the very left in this figure. But then to what extent was the event, the reason to travel, to what is the regional leakage of money spent, etc., etc. And all these are sort of used parallel, and you can't never really tell which one the event organizer or the hosting destination uses, and I think that it's time to think critical about this and maybe try to come up with a regional or even a national standard. How do we measure economic impacts from events? And this very month we are starting a cooperation with Visit Skåne, where we actually look more into method development. So that's really exciting.
So in short, what is a successful event? And what are the most important pitfalls?
I think a successful event might not necessarily be counted only in monetary terms. I think a successful event also adds values to not only visitors and event organizers, but also local inhabitants. And all these should be taken into account, which also then argue in favor of having events having public support because they do deal with public issues. The main pitfalls, there are so many, but I think being a little bit uncritical to what you actually measure, and I think a serious event organizer should also take the potential negative impacts into account, but definitely also the social and societal sides, because there are huge positive impacts and legacy, as I think we will hear from the other panelists half an hour to come.
Yeah. Thank you, Robert, and we'll come back to you again, of course. And don't hesitate to put questions to each other, as I mentioned before. Pau, 1992, it was a completely other ball game. It was another world. How do you want to, what do you want to add in this context? What can we experience from what you experienced?
Well, I think that for Barcelona, the Olympic Games was the lever for a change of the city. In fact, in the purpose of the mayor at that time was not to really to organize an event. It was an excuse to have the investments that the city needed after 40 years of dictatorship system in Spain. Barcelona is a non-state capital, like Malmö, so for different reasons, we were a little bit behind the central government. So the Olympic Games was perceived as an opportunity to force the administrations to invest in Barcelona. We used, or at that time, they used the reputation, the attraction of a Mediterranean city, a common project of institutions, civil society and private sector, and they went for it, and we won, and then the Olympics were a big success as an event, as an event point of view. At that time, was said that were the best Olympic Games in history. But what has become to Barcelona is really the platform to build up the modern city. So we do not see the Olympic Games as an event. We see the Olympic Games as the foundations of the new Barcelona.
And here's an overview over, I think, the harbor,
exactly.
Of course.
So this is probably what many people can imagine, when, despite Sagrada Familia and Gaudí architecture. But this is the modern, vibrant, and Mediterranean city. But beyond this, I say this was the platform for the second one. Please, the second photo. For this, people think Barcelona is mainly as a tourist city, but in fact, this tourism is mainly acting as a catalyzer to have new investments and a new economic opportunity. And this is the 22 Arrobas, is the technological district. And 20 or 30 years ago, nobody would think Barcelona as a digital economy capital. And today is one of our big realities. So both the Olympic Games and in 2004, we captured the Mobile World Congress, what is the most important event that we organize every year. But the event is a catalyzer for new processes, new dynamics, new investments, attraction of talent, what gives us a result, this. Today, Barcelona is one of the places where founders choose the city to set up startups. 87% of founders of startups are foreigners. And it goes to the third, just to the third one.
Third picture, yes, please.
What is 2024, this year? We're gonna host in autumn the America's Cup, the third most viewed event in the world. And this is not this is not an event. This is an excuse for Barcelona to push to be one of the blue economy world capitals. So again, an event as a catalyzer for new opportunities for the city.
Congratulations. Yes.
Yes.
If I have understood it correctly, before the Olympic Games, about 1.7 million people visited the city. Now you have more than 20 million tourists.
That's right. But the most important data is not the number of tourists, is that the 52% of the tourists repeat the visit to Barcelona. So we are not having constantly new tourists, but people see Barcelona as a place to come back and to come back. And these are not only tourists, and businessmen, is international talent, is scientific tourism, is cultural tourism, is sport tourism. So what is the visitors? Is a new visitors economy that goes beyond tourism. So this is the qualitative data. More than half of these people come back again to Barcelona.
Amazing. Before we continue with Liverpool and Harry, this event 1992. I mean, it was another world. The demand from sponsors maybe weren't as they are today about sustainability, etc. So talking about legacy, were there any consequences in how you were planning an event in those days that you have to deal with today?
In fact, in Barcelona, well, in 1992, all the infrastructure that was done in Barcelona was automatically adopted by the city. So one of the problems of the Olympic Games is that many of the infrastructures after the Games are not used. So it's not an investment, it's an expenditure. In the case of Barcelona, they were needed, so the 100% of the infrastructure was adopted for the city. So any event that we do, it has to accomplish three things. First, to be aligned with the values of the city. Secondly, obviously, to have a positive impact in today's life and economic opportunities and jobs. But the most important is legacy in terms of creating new processes. So unless these three conditions are there, we would not push, we would not try to attract events. Events by events does not fit in the model of Barcelona.
Okay, we'll come back to that also. Harry, you have an interesting story when it comes to last year, where you sort of inherited Eurovision from Ukraine. How was that? Tell us.
Well, I mean, the UK didn't think it would be hosting Eurovision for such a long time, so it was very different. But no, I think for Liverpool, and Liverpool's quite similar to Malmö in many ways, I think, there's that sense of social justice, and so doing it on behalf of Ukraine gave it a new element for us, and a new way of delivering large-scale events in the city as well, the international relations aspect behind it, and being able to position the city in such a way was very unique for us, actually. In the context, you've got to think, in the UK, there is a real divide between what you see in London and what you see in the north. And so our northern cities, Manchester, Liverpool, Newcastle, etc., they're quite far behind in terms of development and sort of scale, I suppose, when compared to London. And so for a number, I mean, you can see actually from the picture, fabulous picture of the skyline here in Liverpool. That building right in front of you, the Museum of Liverpool, that didn't exist before we bid for the Capital of Culture in 2008. And so talking about legacy, that's a standing building of a legacy from that fantastic year that we had and the attention that was given to the city. But no, I think Eurovision for us, I get quite nervous when I talk about legacy because we had 6 months to plan Eurovision and to deliver it. But I think for me, it's about winning over heart first, which helps win over mind. If you deliver a fantastic event, we had 162 million people watch Eurovision last year, 280,000 pieces of global news coverage in total from the moment we found out and we bid for the contest. That is PR that you just can't buy. And so Liverpool was truly everywhere. And so we're currently building on, it's building blocks, I suppose, as mentioned before, in terms of Barcelona, those relationships. And I think doing it on behalf of Ukraine, as I say, it gave us that confidence to really be outward facing. Of course, we in the UK shot ourselves in the foot with Brexit. But Liverpool was very much a Remain city. And so being able to be outward facing was quite important for us.
How was the dialogue with Ukraine? Or did it end when you took it over, or did you have some communication?
No, so what was great actually was we already had a relationship with Odessa, so a southern port city in Ukraine, our sister city. But usually you find that with those sort of relationships, it's it's on the paper, nothing really much happens. But we've developed this fantastic relationship, particularly with detta now, and so lots of knowledge sharing around libraries information, knowledge, the knowledge quarter and knowledge sector, because we've got 3 fantastic universities in Liverpool, and so there's lots of work in the background now with our partners in detta. Of course, they're still at war, so it is very difficult at the moment, at this moment in Ukraine, of course.
Is there anything that you have experienced when you created the Eurovision and the other events that you have learned from, that you will bring to next event or into the future of Liverpool?
Yeah, I mean, it goes back to that question of legacy, actually, because we usually spend a lot of time planning and planning for legacy. So, for example, for 2008 Capital of Culture, that was 5 years in the planning. You know, again, lots of the architecture in the new architecture in Liverpool, the business district and Liverpool One, for example, retail, that was all built for 2008. And yet Eurovision, as I say, was delivered in 5 months. And so for us, it's that realization that if you take on an event like Eurovision and you deliver so well and you put everything into it, and the PR that comes with that, but also you mentioned before the feel. In Liverpool, in the UK, of course, we've had 14 years of austerity, and it's been very difficult for people. But when Eurovision took place in Liverpool, everybody was happy that the joyous feeling that culture, brought and the song contest brought.
So there were never discussion where you have to motivate taxpayers for Eurovision or the events. Is there any time that you feel that these discussions pop up?
Yeah, Joe, I actually find it really frustrating that we have to justify culture. When in Liverpool, of course, we're big for football. So in 2028, we'll be hosting some fixtures for the Euros 2028, and nobody asked me or questioned me how much we were spending on Euros. But the second we said that we were bidding for Eurovision, a song contest, it was, how much are you putting forward, and what's this, and what's the economic impact? We always have to justify culture, and I think, clearly our figures and what took place in May in terms of economic impact, fantastic, off the charts, far better than what we expected. But what that's done for us in terms of placing, as I say, the city on an international stage, but also that health and well-being and that feeling in the city, that confidence and pride is fantastic. And of course, we're a music city as well, so now it's given us that new platform with music.
But shortly, do you measure? Do you have figures? Can you talk about figures, how this has benefited the businesses in Liverpool? Do you have that now?
Yes. So we had quite a few look at this. So for £54.8 million economic impact, and we actually only planned for around 20 to 25 million economic impact. So it was beyond the charts. It was fantastic for us, and for us as well. In the UK, and of course, coming out of the pandemic, the industry in Liverpool, we are heavily reliant on the visitor economy, on the tourism sector. And so for us, it was that bounce back post-COVID, making sure that businesses felt supported, but also getting people back into work, because there was a huge gap in people returning to the hospitality sector in particular. But no, 54.8 million was the economic impact for Liverpool.
So what are you going to do with that money?
Well, it's not in our pocket. Again, I get asked this question all the time, well, where's this money gone? But of course, it got a lot of local businesses through a really difficult winter. at the same time. So we saw in other UK cities lots of businesses closing in winter 2022. But because we had Eurovision and people were looking and they could plan for this event, it helped them sort of continue. And so we've not been as impacted in terms of closures, for example, compared to other UK cities.
I know that Robert wants to add something. You will definitely be able to do that. But first, Ulrika, when I asked you to bring an image of your business, you chose this one. And I was like, oh, what does this mean to you?
Of course, we work well with workplaces. We have more than 2,000 companies in this region as tenants. And yes, we can create buildings and places and take care of existing buildings and try to do that in a very good and innovative and architectural good design and create creative environments. But this has absolutely no value if we don't fill these areas with people. And people both, of course, in the buildings, meeting each other, making good new ideas, but also outside and in the city, and the city as a whole. We are totally depending and needing that the region and the cities are good cities to be in, because that's the only thing that's create attractiveness. And culture is a very important part of attractiveness. So all these things fits together. We can build the most fantastic things, but if we don't together create a good environment with different kind of things, of course, good education is important, and good housing is important, and safety and inspiring environment. But without the events and without the culture, there's a very poor environment. So I think that is one of my messages, that we have to listen to these guys, both in the long-term perspective and in the more short-term perspective. And the figures are interesting, but,
not to mention.
but maybe not so festival-like. And we have a responsibility to embrace that and do things from that. Because it's also about identity, I would say. Today we talk a lot about, when we talk about the workplace, we talk a lot about the culture on the company, and how do you create that culture that people want to come there and be motivated and productive and do things together. And the culture is really, really important thing in that discussion. But the culture and the identity is also really important for the city. How do you describe the city you're in? And I thought about something. We often talk about when you talk about Lund, you say that knowledge, the university and such, knowledge and humor is a very good combination in Lund. And I would say that Malmö, we have a really good skill in practice to develop and change from one thing to another. We have practice. And we also have festival. That's also a theme for this city. So nothing could suit this city more than Eurovision. So when things fit together, there's a reason why that things are suitable for each other. That makes it even more reasonable and to get that impact in long-term perspective. So I think that we should really embrace this, be true to the the definition of how we make the identity of this city, and take the opportunity and responsibility to take actions so that we get these long-term benefits for us, and also the possibility for others to come here, of course. And there we can make a difference, all of us, because it's how we make this identification and what we do from it and the story we're telling about it. So that is actually my message today. Listen to these guys and let's see what we can do from that and be really, really proud over what we have here.
And yeah, good. Thank you, Liga. And I was more direct when we spoke on the phone. I said, so what's in it for you? And you said something very logic, but still it's good to hear. When your tenants thrive, your company thrive.
Yeah, of course. We have decided to put all our investment in the Öresund region, and Malmö is our greatest city. So, of course, we are depending on that this region and these cities are well today and that they develop well, because I have a need that my business can grow. And I try to do what I can, of course, to stimulate that. We can do good things with our properties and good things for the city, trying to get young people into education and try to stimulate innovative companies to get together and invest in different kind of science parks and innovation hubs and such. We can do a lot of things about because that creates impact, but we are totally depending on that this development comes through.
I was thinking you could comment each other. Robert, you made some notes quite early. I don't know if you want to.
No, it was
start.
More for a grocery store, what to buy when I get home. No, but I think this is really interesting. A lot of aspects, top of mind, of course. 20 million visits is impressive, but then and you do mention a number of reasons to travel to Barcelona, and you didn't mention was visiting friends and relatives, which is most likely the most common reason. So Eurovision is likely a reason to travel, but your mother-in-law is most likely even more popular if you look into tourist research. So I think we should...
You're serious now? You're serious.
No, yes,
yeah. Okay,
I am.
just checking.
Thanks for asking. No, but 56% of all the travel motifs when Swedes are traveling is for the main reason visiting friends and relatives. But what's interesting with events, I think, it's that it matches the travel pattern of today, where we travel more times a year but shorter in time, and that's pretty much what the events are, limited in time, and it is becoming more and more popular, not least participation events like running events. People even run over bridges, I've seen in the news. So yeah, there are events is not as popular in mother-in-law, but moving closer.
So what is your point with this? You mean that the events creates other travel patterns that are better from sustainability perspective? Or is it more that we need to plan better for a huge amount of people coming in short terms?
Yeah, I think so, and think about events as like something that can be added to attractions, but because after all it's really complex why you travel, and meeting other people is not least really the very core of why we travel. So think about events as an opportunity to strengthen and affect other aspects of a place attractiveness.
Pau, before you say anything, I really have to say, you have something that we are jealous about, talking about music. Something that really put Barcelona on the map was Freddie Mercury and Montserrat Caballé when they sang Barcelona. I mean, it was a hymn, wonderful song. So yes, sorry, I just want to mention that.
This is very much linked what I wanted to say, because you mentioned something that is central. I wanted to mention, I have in my notes, it's about identity. But prior to that, you know, when people ask me how you define Barcelona, I say Barcelona is an activist city. And I'm an activist, would say politician or institutional responsible. What does it mean? That we stand for certain values. And the fact that we have so many events is the fact because we have decided to be a truly open city. And when you decide to be open, you have to do it with all consequences. This means that you have to say that you welcome investors, international talent, international students, economic migrants, and refugees, for example. And to be an open city and to stand as an activist city for an open world is about this. And this is a sensitive thing in today's world. Some people are afraid to be open because there is the fear to lose part of your identity and your culture. In Barcelona in 2000, we were 2% of foreigners. Today, 30% of residents in Barcelona were born outside of Spain. And you know, we have a strong identity, we have our own language, we have a strong culture. So no fears to be open. But to be open is an attitude, and is the precondition to attract events, investment, international talent. And this is not obvious because it's complex. So this is part of the success of Barcelona. Because as maybe some of you know, Richard Florida is a researcher in the United States that wrote 2 very interesting books, Creative Cities and The Creative Class. And the creative class goes to the creative cities are open cities. Because in some places, creativity or some groups that are very creative, they have not freedom in the cities. And they look for places where they can deploy all this creativity. And we think modestly that Barcelona is one of these places. So to be open is a good business, not only in economic terms, culturally, socially. And the second, and this is linked to the purpose of the city, we have decided that Barcelona should be the city for the vital projects of any person that wants to come to Barcelona. And the second one is you need a vision. And the vision is about to be connected. And automatically, when you say connected, you mention infrastructures, airport, port, digital connections. Yes, this is one part. The second one is to be embedded in the new value chains, semiconductors, visitors economy, whatever. But the third one, what is the killer application, is emotional connection. The world is moved by emotions. And if a city projects emotions, has emotionally engaged to the people, is the right place to be. Is the right place to organize events. I was mentioning, Malmö is a very important city for one generation of social democratic leaders in the world. Many of them between 50s and 60s, like me, we are in responsibilities. Because it was organized a social democratic wall festival in 2000 in Malmö. And you are not using. The Minister of State of Germany was in Malmö in 2000. Many ministers, many leaders of companies all around the world were in Malmö in 2000. This emotional connection is an opportunity. And this emotional connection is about music, it's about Freddie Mercury, it's about Montserrat Caballé, it's about the festivals, it's about having Madonna in Barcelona, Bruce Springsteen. Every year there are big concerts. It's about emotions. If you manage emotions, you have opportunities. But let me finish by one thing. Success also has challenges, not to say problems. And one of them is when you are a successful city, you have a challenge in the management of the public space. Because the way public space is used culturally is very different. And this is a challenge. And Barcelona, despite this success, also we have important challenges to handle. And polarization and so on is one of the problems that has come to become a challenge to manage a city, a success city like Barcelona.
Thank you, Pau. Yes.
Okay.
Any comments?
I've got to say I completely agree with Pau and his sort of assessment on that, because the feeling I get from Malmö, I said before, is quite similar to Liverpool in that social justice element, but also, you know, that open door, you know, you can be anyone you want to be here in Malmö. I get that feeling, and I think that's really important to lean into that identity, because that's what attracts people to the city in the first place. That's what happens in Liverpool. And I go back to that point I made before about, you know, I know we're trying to diversify industries and use events as springboards, but I would just say at the same time, it's really important that you get the event right and that you include as many people around it as possible. So when we delivered Eurovision, for example, we had a full educational programme which reached 2 million children across the city region and beyond, a community programme to get people involved in that as well. And just to give them some ownership of the event. You know, what happened in the arena for the TV show was fantastic, but what happened in communities and in schools was just as important for us at the same time. But if you get the event right and you position Malmö right, that is the reputation that you build. And of course, having that infrastructure, the industry, the tourism industry is crucial. Diversifying is important, but the tourism industry is crucial, because if you want to do those events again, or you want to grow, or you want to do the Olympics at some point in the future, then you need to grow your infrastructure at the same time, which is the conversation that we are having in Liverpool. So get the event right, but I know you've got the organisers behind Eurovision are here today, and I know they'll do a fantastic job, so just good luck, guys.
Thank you. Yes, we are happy for all the congratulations that the city is receiving. In my younger days, I lived in Kristianstad, Åhus, Hanaskog. That was my circle. And the reason to come to Malmö was because it was close to Copenhagen. Now it's a completely other ball game, and it's one of the fastest growing city in Sweden, and with all the sustainability aim, so it's quite impressive. Are there any things that you really need to consider when it goes so fast?
Well, but something to reflect upon, I think, is it's happening all the time, and we have in Sweden tended to use now the term legacy. It's also in the subtitle for today's morning meeting. But I think we should be aware not only to think about the legacy as something that is beyond the event, but also I think many of your examples is about the planning period and not least during the event. So I think to some extent event impact should be addressed as something happening even before, and sometimes it might be even better before. You can sort of encourage people, involve people, get people engaged. So I think this planning period up front, the bidding and planning periods are really important also for the outcome, or let's say the legacy of the event. Talking about sustainability, it's just, it strikes me when I read now the numerous studies coming of event impacts, almost everyone points out the gap between what people know about travel and climate impact and how they actually make their choices. There seems to be a gap that we don't necessarily live or travel as we learn. And that could be a pity, and we do have environmental challenges. But I think also there are studies showing that events can really be a driver to start a movement or change people's attitudes. We do have Swedish music festivals that have sort of decided to strive to make people eat more vegetarian, like the Way Out West festival. And they actually took the event as an opportunity to state this as a role model, and studies shown that yes, they did change people's attitude towards vegetarian food. And I think this is also, you should not underestimate the power of these bigger events, because it is a context. You want to add your values and your soul into the event, and yeah, they can be used to affect people in certain directions.
To create food trends even.
Let me just have a comment on what you started with saying, that Malmö was a reason to come to Malmö was because it was closer to Copenhagen.
That was long ago, though.
And no, but it's even closer today, I would say, with the bridge closer.
Yeah, that's true.
and also be aware of that is a very important factor for Malmö, of course. All the investments that are done in Copenhagen, it's good for us. We can benefit from that. So it's an advantage for us that we are close to Copenhagen. We don't have to do all those investments on ourselves. We can just benefit from it. So let's not forget that important factor.
Thank you, Ulrika. Another factor that comes up, we already touched upon that. How should a city or event handle all the political issues in a way without sort of slow down the plans and everything? We had political issues 92, and Liverpool also were involved. We have political issues today, war, and a lot of different opinions on which should be in the contest or not. Any comments on that?
Well, I'm the politician on stage, so I could probably say a lot about that. But I think, listen, we obviously dealt with the war last year. That's obviously still ongoing. For Malmö and Eurovision, it's a music at its heart. The beat of this is music. And so, of course, there are tensions in the Middle East, etc. But this is about music at the end of the day. And so don't be distracted by that. But also what Malmö is really good at, as I found out last week, is starting that conversation and having that civilized conversation. I learned last week about the Forbidden Books Library, for example, which I thought was fantastic. You know, it's that open space to look at, banned books from across the world, whether you like them or not, either way. But it's about having a space to actually have that conversation and have that in a civilized way, because people have strong views on all sides. But how you deal with that is really important. But what I would say about politicians in general is that I don't think politicians fully understand the impact and power of culture in addressing some of these issues. And so I would say, we use Eurovision, for example, to have a real discussion around war and the impacts of war, and the commissions that we had in Liverpool. We had sandbags covering some of our major monuments in the city to reflect what was happening in Ukraine. So we had an artist come in. So it was a prompt for discussion. So use culture to have that civilized discussion. If you ignore it, that becomes, well, you create a vacuum, and that potentially becomes a problem. So use culture is what I would say to have that conversation.
Good point.
It's an interesting. It's a very interesting question, because I'm passionate about that, because I like to say that the 20th century was the century of the states. The 21st century is the century of cities. And geopolitical events in the world are going to be complex in the coming years. So we move into the economy of security, with a kind of deglobalization. And I'm afraid that the states are going to put many efforts in these geopolitical challenges. Well, and this is an opportunity of cities to concentrate attention and to be really the places where new progress, wealth, and social justice needs to be created. So I think that 21st century is an opportunity for cities. Any city has to decide if it wants to be in one of what we call the new global cities. In 20th century, there were 5, 6 global cities: New York, London, Paris, Hong Kong, Tokyo. And now it's a bunch of 100 new global cities that are going to be leading the world. Singapore, Berlin, Copenhagen, Barcelona, Malmö, Milan, Shenzhen in India, etc., Miami. We have to decide if we want to be one of these 100 new global cities that will lead the world. And this is an opportunity, I think.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. Ulrika?
Yes. I think we have, it's really important to, I think the things you talk about, the openness and awareness are important, and we can't back off also difficult questions, of course. And I know that we can handle both of them at the same time. There are really large suffering and difficult questions in the world today, but that doesn't mean that we can't celebrate things and be happy. And we also know that from a scientific point of view, that collaboration beats protectionism every day. We are much stronger together than we are apart. And I think that we learned a lot from the pandemic period, where borders were shut and people closed both cities and their homes and countries. That was not the right way of how to make a better society together. So let's be aware of difficulties, take the opportunity to discuss them and try to solve things where we can affect things, but be aware of that we do things better when we can be open to each other and solve things together. I think this event is also a part of that.
Mm. And you're, I mean, we could applaud you for everything you say, actually. This is very good to hear. Robert, yeah, do you put political issues as a parameter?
Everyone keeps bringing up this positive impacts. I've looked into some research why events fail. You think it's time to say some challenging words now?
Absolutely.
Yeah. It is quite a massive list. I think I have a top 20 reasons why events fail. After all, it's Lill-lördag, so I stick to top 5. But I think what you said about your intense planning period, that's on 5th place, the lack of planning. And I'm always surprised how people in event organizations, they are inventing the wheel again and again when there are so many experiences. As you bring here today and learn from other experiences, I think that's a great start because the challenges are pretty much the same. On 4th place, inadequate or wrong marketing. You might have the wrong message in the wrong channel towards the wrong target group. And that's critical because you want to attract people to the events. On 3rd place, overconfidence in one single funder. And this happens every now and then, especially now when we're moving into a weaker conjunction, that sometimes we trust that the budget is safe, but it sticks with one main funder. 2nd place, the weather, which is, thanks God, not a big issue for events like the Eurovision, but for the outdoor events, and including the Olympics, definitely. And 1st place is actually sad, but through the lack of sponsorship. And here I think somehow I would like to think about events as beyond monetary values. But there is a sort of need to make both ends meet when you plan and deliver an event. But then, again, I'm surprised that more event organizers don't use these broad positive aspects of an event, not least the societal ones, as we heard several examples of here, because that should really be something that companies, partners, sponsors would like to be related to. guest nights is not as sexy as happy children.
Good point, as always.
You can quote me on that.
Yeah, we will do that.
May I say something on that? I think you pointed out something is very important. I think a city have to learn also to say no to certain events and initiatives. Many times there's proposed to us events that have mainly an economic impact. They say, this is very good economically for Barcelona, but it's not aligned with some other of the values of the city. I give you one example where has been polemic in Barcelona, has been offered to Barcelona to host a kind of Hermitage museum. Hermitage museum is something relevant in cultural terms, and we have said no, and has been a shock. Even though Barcelona, the 14% of the jobs of the city are devoted to creative industries, because it was mainly purely a business in order to have a shop, a restaurant, and this museum was not embedded in the cultural life of the city. And we say no. So I think the city, I mean, an event, it needs to be rooted into the city, has to be coherent with the values that you want to promote. And I think that some cities are attracting events by having events and having economic impact, but it needs to be competitive, it needs to be sustainable, and needs to promote social cohesion. Otherwise, it does not fit in the city.
Harry.
Yeah, and I'll just add to that in the sense that hopefully lots of businesses here this morning. I would say my advice as well is don't wait to be told what to do for Eurovision as well. I mean, there'll be some things around branding, etc. But what we said to our businesses was, you know, because you are very much part of that city welcome when all of these visitors come to Malmö, is do your own thing. And so, for example, we had, you know, major brands like Zara, for example, they just did this most fantastic art sort of exhibition in their window. We had a jeweller's with a karaoke, you know, sort of, you know, people singing in the window, and it was just absolutely bonkers wherever you went in Liverpool. But that was all part of that city welcome, and again that vibe, and given that feeling that Malmö is a vibrant city. So my advice as well is just, you know, make Eurovision in your own way. You know, do it your way for your business, whether it's a hotel, bar, restaurant. Just go for it, and I'm back in May as well for Eurovision. So, I do love karaoke, so let me know.
Good to know. Hey, we haven't discussed so much about what kind of target groups you need to attract. Are we going to talk about, do we want to keep the young ones in the cities forever? Or do we want to attract elderly people to remain in the city? Are everyone as important? Social media? How do you handle all this? Pau?
Well, it's not an easy question. I think the answer should be all kind of people, but reality is that in today's world with mobility, there is this tendency, these digital nomads between mainly 30 and 45 years, that, for example, in the case of Barcelona, is the group that has growth a lot in Barcelona. And these people stay for a few years and not necessarily remain in Barcelona. So the question is, should we attract them, yes or not? The answer is yes. Because even though they do not stay in the city, because they decide then to go to somewhere else or are better paid in another city, like London or Singapore, they become ambassadors of the city. They are the best ambassadors. So it's worth to invest in attracting people that would not stay in the city forever. At the same time, you have to attract investors, talent that want to establish their life or the professional project in Barcelona. So I think that everyone makes a contribution to the city, and in today's world, reputation is one of the main drivers for attracting opportunities, and the fact that we have ambassadors all over the world because they were students or they spent a couple of years in Barcelona is a good investment.
That's a good way of thinking about it. We have another 5 minutes before we end the session. Robert, of course.
But from a researcher point of view, again, I would say, who should you attract? Well, keep the local inhabitants in mind, but try to create values that attract visitors, because the visitors somehow, they bring in money to the region or the local community. This, in theory, leads to attractive place attractiveness, which in turn has been shown that what attracts visitors to a place also attracts newcomers or people moving in a longer perspective. It attracts students, the same kind of lifestyle factors that attract tourists. And not least, it might attract people and have them staying on in a region, which is quite a critical thing these days for most places. So, yeah, place attractiveness is crucial.
I was going to disagree slightly, actually. I know we're getting towards the end, so I didn't want to disagree. But I think in Liverpool, our biggest asset, apart from football, Beatles, all of that, our biggest asset are the people that live in Liverpool, because we're consistently compared to Manchester in north of the UK. And I know sometimes in Malmö, you sort of feel like you're living in the shadow of Copenhagen, but it's the people in Liverpool that will stand up and defend the city whenever someone comes on, this is happening in Manchester, or Liverpool is the best city in the world in our eyes. And so when you win over your locals, they are your biggest asset. They're the people that sell your city, and that will include, of course, the transient population in terms of students. We've got lots of students in our city as well. But when you've got a really proud local base in your city, which then welcomes in all those visitors at the same time, that's important.
Yeah. But Harry, wouldn't they have spent their money anyhow in Liverpool?
No, absolutely. So getting in the visitors and attracting the visitors is important. I'm making the point that if you don't have, when you have pride and you have all of your local base or pride, they're the people that are going to tell their family, their friends, but also when they're also the people welcoming the visitors as well. So it's all part of that friendly feel. Liverpool was voted the most friendliest city in the UK, so that also goes a long way for us as well. So it's just about making sure that your residents.
Sorry, Harry. Thank you very much for that, Robert. Take it easy. I just wanted to give Ulrika the latest final wording about target groups.
I believe in this identity thing, definitely. And I don't think that tourists come to meet other tourists. So to keep the focus on what happened in the city for the inhabitants here is important. But, as mentioned before, we are also obligated to go out and tell the story about our identity here, not only to each other, to the rest of the world.
That's right.
Yes, thank you very much. Pau, Ulrika, Harry and Robert, thank you so much. And the thing is, I feel the vibes from Robert. He wants to talk even more. But I know that it's very easy to get in contact with him if you want to continue the discussion. Thank you so much, and thank you for your experiences. And good luck, Malmö! Okay, thank you. Thank you.